Hey guys, Freddy here. Welcome back to another rules breakdown. And this time I'm going to be looking at this, Gangbusters, the 1982 role-playing game from TSR. Now this is probably going to be one of the shorter rules breakdown videos, because these are really streamlined, straightforward rules. And that's not a criticism, they're not simplistic. They're just really easy to pick up and really easy to use. There's extra levels of complexity in there if you want them, but they start off dead simple. And that's going to be absolutely great. Now, as usual, I want to use a pre-built character for making my rolls. So we've got pre-rolled characters here in with the boxed adventure Mad Dog Johnny Drake. And the first one is Detective Jim Slade. So we'll be using him. Not because he's better or worse than anybody, but simply because he's first. But anyway, let's have a look at Gangbusters. So there are two types of checks in Gangbusters. There's ability checks, where you're rolling against your basic ability scores. So if you're trying to use your muscles, Jim Slade here's got a muscle score of 70. He'd be rolling a percentile dice against that. He gets 63 and he succeeds. Or if he's trying to drive, his driving is 66, so he'd be throwing against that. We get 38, so he would succeed. Of course, you can apply penalties to that. So if the road is wet and slippy, if the vehicle he's in is damaged, so not handling so good, the Games Master might apply penalties of 10, 20 or even 30%. So perhaps that would have failed in the right circumstances. But the second type of test is skill tests. Now, these are really odd because starting characters start with no skills whatsoever. They start with 20% in everything. So they do have a chance. So if this character's trying to do any type of skill roll, we're throwing, we get 0.5, he succeeds. But it's a 20% chance. As he levels up, he can start buying those skills. So we'll be able to do these things better. But let's have a look at the rulebook. So on page 6, we have the ability checks. Some types of ability checks are muscle checks made when characters try to smash down doors, lift heavy things, that kind of thing. Agility checks, made when characters fire guns, try to hit someone in fist fight, or make a difficult movement. Observation checks, when characters try to avoid being surprised or find hidden clues. And driving checks made when characters drive cars at fast speeds or under dangerous conditions. So these are just rolls against the basic ability you've got. Further on page 21, we've got the skills. So we've got the big list of skills here, auto theft, fingerprinting, lockpicking, photography, disguise, smuggling, accounting. And you're rolling against a 20% chance of success if you don't have an ordinary skill. However, secrecy of checks. All skill checks are rolled secretly by the game judge. The judge should not tell the character whether the check was successful. The judge should simply describe the effects the check is made on the course of play. So the players don't roll their skills. They do roll ability checks, but they don't roll skill checks. It's the Games Master who rolls those for the players and describes what happens. And we've got automatic failure. A dice roll on a roll of 100, double zero, and a skill check means the attempt to use a skill has failed, regardless of the character's skill score. So basically, even if you've improved your skill up massively, so it's over 100, you still stand that 1% chance of failure. And initiative. Well, this is one of those systems where your action depends on what you're doing. If we turn to page 7, we can see sequence of play outline. Step 1. Check to see if any characters were surprised by actions in the previous turn. So if somebody has surprise, then the characters who are surprised don't get to act. And there's a surprise table where you roll on it and you can actually not act for 1 to 3 turns, depending on how bad you roll. Step 2. Players declare what they're going to do. These can be noted down and revealed simultaneously if players want. So people won't know what each other are doing if you're wanting to play that way. Step 3. Characters who are closing with an opponent for a fistfight are moved. Some characters may be able to fire at this time, see guns in fistfights. So people shooting into a fistfight get to act first, after people who are closing with others. Step 4. All other characters who are moving complete one half of their movement. Step 5, fist fighting actions are resolved. Step 6, gunfighting and other actions are resolved. Step 7, characters finish moving. So, if you're closing with somebody, you go first. If you're shooting into a fist fight, you then go at the same time as that. People who are moving do half of their move. Fist fights, gunfights, and then the final half of people's move. And so on to combat. Well, combat's like any other skill roll. You're going to be rolling a percentile dice, and in this case you're rolling it against agility, because that's what you need to roll against for hitting things or firing. But if we go on to page 11, we can see there's lots of modifiers. So if the target's running, then there's a minus 80 to it. If they're behind cover, a minus 30. If you are in a car moving slowly, it's minus 10. And you get bonuses. You know, if you're firing a rifle, you get plus 10 for just firing for a rifle. And you apply those modifiers to your skill, and then you're rolling a percentile. So we look at our sample character, Detective Jim Slade, agility 80. We'll say that he's in a car moving quickly, so minus 30. He's got 50% chance of hitting. So we throw our dice, and we roll 28, so he's hit. And so damage. Well, damage is simply based on what kind of weapon you're using. So for firearms, we've got a firearms data chart here. And we can see that the 22 revolver does 4 points of damage. A 44 revolver does 6. A 45 automatic does 6. A 22 rifle does 5. But we've also got some special ones here. So we've got the Tommy gun, which is dealt with between page 10 and 11. And you can fire a burst. So a burst inflicts 20 points of wounds if there's only one target in the area of the burst. 15 points of wounds on each of 2 characters in the area of the burst, or 40 points of wounds divided evenly, dropping fractions, amongst all characters in the area of the burst if 3 or more characters are present. So you can spray a bunch of bullets into an area, hitting one target for massive damage, or spreading that damage around 4 other targets. We've also got Browning automatic rifles, which can also fire a burst as the Thompson submachine gun, but can also fire 3 separate attacks. And they get a penalty, so minus 0 for the first shot, minus 10 for the second shot, minus 20 for the third shot, bearing in mind that you've got plus 10 because this is a rifle. And finally we've got shotguns. We're at a range of 25 feet or less. Shotgun will hit only one target and inflict 15 points of damage. 26 and 75 feet hits all targets in an area 15 feet wide, doing 5 points on each target. And 76 to 225 feet, a shotgun will hit all targets in a similar area, but inflict only 2 points. So it does massive damage against one target close, will hit a group of targets further away for lesser damage, and only light damage to somebody quite distant, as the buckshot spreads out. Now that's for guns. For hand-to-hand combat, it's based on your strength. So if we go back to page 4, we've got the punching table. So based on your strength, you do punching score of 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 bound to damage. Looking at our character, Detective Jim Slade, strength of 70. So comes 61 to 80, he does 4 points of damage with a punch, which is pretty darn good. So health is recorded as hit points. So if we look at our sample character, we can see Detective Jim Slade has 20 hit points recorded in this end column here. And you record damage in 2 ways. Punches and fistfights and the like do bruises. And gunfights and bullets and heavier damage is wounds. Now, when you go over your amount of hit points with damage, if some of it's bruises, then you fall unconscious. And you roll a d100 to see how long you wake up in minutes. So 84 minutes for this character until they rouse from unconsciousness. Now, it doesn't matter whether they received a couple of points from a fist fight earlier on and then wounds took them the rest of the way, or it's all bruises or whatever. As long as some of the damage is in bruises, then they fall unconscious. However, if we go back to the rules, wounds are handled slightly differently. Other effects of injury. A character who has wounds equal equal or greater than 1/2 of his hit points suffers 3 special effects. The character's muscle, agility, and driving scores are reduced by 20 points. The character's movement rates are halved. The character must be treated with a doctor within 24 hours. A character who is not treated by a doctor within 24 hours will die at the end of that time. And if you go beyond your hit points or with wounds, then it's what happens, your character dies. However, you can make a luck roll. So rolling against your character's luck to see whether that final wound actually does kill you. And if you succeed the luck roll, then the damage is reduced to a single point. So, characters here, luck is 40, so we will throw. And he got 31, so he lucked out, so his wounds would be reduced to a single point, which hopefully wouldn't take him over his hit points, or he would die. And to heal that back, well, it's very much like Dungeons & Dragons was. Healing. Injury points are removed when they are healed. Injuries will heal only if the injured character rests. A character spends the day resting if he receives no new injuries and does nothing strenuous, like fighting. For each day spent resting, a character heals 1 point of wounds and 3 points of bruises. When a character heals, the appropriate number and type of checkboxes in the injuries section of the character sheet should be erased. Unconscious characters automatically heal 3 points of bruises when they wake up. And advancement. Well, advancement's done through experience points. If we go on to page 20, we can see that they go up by levels. So once you reach 10,000 experience, you move to level 2, and so on and so forth. And above 10th, you need 250,000 experience per level. But when you level up, you also get to spend those experience points. So you can spend them on things like improving basic abilities. Adding 1 to your muscle score costs 2,000 XPs. Adding 1 to your presence score, 20,000. Over the page, we've got the skills that we saw before. So auto theft, you can buy it at 5,000, and you'll roll a percentile dice to see what you get. But the minimum is 26. You always end up better than the 20% base. We've also got more expensive ones here. Accounting is 35,000, art expertise 50,000, art forgery is 100,000, and you can buy those up as well with experience costs, spending away the amount of experience you earned to get to that level. So that's Gangbusters. Now, I really like the basic system, a roll under D100 percentile system, very simple. But there's lots of modifiers in there to make situations a bit more interesting and offer some challenge to players. I'm not sure about the whole Games Master is the only one who rolls skills, but I do like the idea behind it, and I can see why they did it, because it stops the whole Dungeons & Dragons thing when you do a detect traps and you know you've failed, and the Games Master is weasel wording their way around it, but you know you failed to detect something, so it's not necessarily a safe place. Whereas in this, if you've failed, you don't know that you've failed. You've just got to rely on the information the Game Master's given you. A very cool twist on it. And I really like the rule system. It's fantastically simple and quick. But anyway, I think I've whittled on for quite long enough as usual. So thank you very much for watching. As always, most of all, you look after yourselves, and I'll catch you later. Bye now.